Hello, I am Stephanie, and this week I have my adults acting as kids comparing sensory blocks. So I have 3 different colors. This one is green, and I also have red, yellow, and blue. They are mostly the same. They have just the 3 different colored bands. They're all square on all sides, all 4 sides. They are see-through with different color of blocks inside. And they have either these like tiny little balls inside, a more medium ball, or a very big ball. So when you shake them, they'll make a different noise. But the kids are comparing the shapes that they can see in the squares. So the shapes of the balls inside, or just the basic shape of the block, the color of the bands, how tall the blocks are. Some kids aren't going to know they're tall just by looking at them. Most kids won't. And so they'll kind of experiment with them. They might stack them up next to each other or line them up. But my goal is for them to kind of use their hands as tools, or work together with me too, so we can investigate and look at different ideas we have about them. So some of my ideas are maybe, bringing out a ruler if we have to for height, and looking at that as one investigation to see like how different they are, or stacking them up top to see if they're all flat on the side, to see if they're all the same size, if we can measure with our hands, or to see if they're all squares, to see if the ones with the balls inside make a difference in the noise they make, to see if the balls inside change anything about the block. Do they make the size of the outside any different? So that stacking them would mean they're different size. If you try to line them up, some would stand outside if they're larger. If they think the size of the ball inside might make one heavier, we can try to use a scale, or try to, well, really we would stack one on top of the other because I don't have a scale. But I would stack the larger balls on top of the skinnier ones and see if they hold, to see if they're larger. And that would be more of the idea around that. And then if we need to differentiate, if there are kids that are really catching on quick, we can have them make a pattern. Or if there are kids that need to more work with colors, then we'll do that. If there are kids that aren't going to get really advanced yet, or English language learners, they might just have to look at shapes and colors, or we might have to explain things in different ways. Like ordering them around in a different order, grouping by the same and different, and maybe explain to them in a nonverbal way. So that's what we're going to do. I do have adults working as children, so that will be different because I haven't really taught to adults yet, but that's the only anticipated difference I know of. So hopefully this will be a positive experience and we will get the best out of it. Thank you. Okay, today we are going to sort blocks, and you can sort them by color, or what shape they are, or what's inside of them. I'm going to give you all 2, and then we can start sorting them. So I have 2 for you. I have 1, 2 for you. And I have 1 and 2 for you. Does anybody notice anything the same or anything alike about their blocks, like the same color? They have 2 that are green.
Mine are the same.
And yours are the same shape or color?
Mine are the same color.
What color are they?
Size.
Blue.
Blue. And yours are the same size. Are they the same size wide, or are they same size tall?
Both.
And how do you know?
I just looked and I put them.
You line them up together?
Yes.
That's a good way to find out. Did anyone else want to try that? Well, you stacked yours on top of each other. Does that show you anything?
They look the same.
They do look the same.
But my balls are different size.
The balls are a different size. Your balls might be a
Mine
similar
are-
size.
Similar but different color.
What about your blocks? Are your blocks anything the same?
They both got balls in them.
They both have balls in them, but are they anyways different?
Some are bigger than the others.
Some of the balls inside are bigger than the others.
Yup. The
What-
yellow ones are tiny.
The yellow ones are tiny. Do you think the balls inside make any changes to the block?
Heavy.
It makes them heavier?
Wet. Heavy.
It makes them feel heavier? Does this one feel heavier? Not to you?
Not to me.
Nope.
Not to you either. Do you think one with tiny little balls inside can hold one with the big little balls inside? Can we try putting your one with tiny balls with his one with the bigger balls on top of it?
I like the little ones. They make more noise.
Will you put yours on mine?
The one with little ones? Can it hold the ones with bigger balls in it? It looks like it can.
Keep building them.
Oh, that looks like it might make a pattern. Did you mean to knock those over?
No.
I don't think you meant to knock them over. You may have hit an uneven spot on the floor.
Look, that's that size. Those match.
And they all look to be about the same size. Are any standing outside of each other? Or do they look to stack all the same on the side?
Same
They look
size.
flat here.
They're all flat, nothing sticks out.
No, but these balls are really big.
Some balls inside of them are different sizes. But these ones are all blue. Does that mean all the balls inside are the same? Do they all look the same to you?
Nope. They're the same color, but they're different sizes.
So even though they're the same color, the balls inside are different. But how can we tell if the blocks are different in any other ways? How can we tell if the sizes are different?
Next to each other.
We can put them next to each other or stack them again. So if we put them next to each other, are they any different size-wise?
I don't think so.
And they're all what shape?
I think they're squares.
They're all squares. Squares have 4 sides the same size. Do all those sides look about the same size? If you guys took your hands and measured them, you think they'd be the same size?
I think so.
It looks about right.
Yes.
Do you guys want to see what happens when you shake the ones with the medium-sized balls inside versus
Yep.
the tiny ones?
Yeah.
Now shake your tiny one again. You can shake the one with big balls on it, and then the tiny head, you can shake a medium one. Do you notice any difference in the sound?
Yep. Mine's noisier.
Oh, that's a fun experiment.
Mine's louder than his.
Okay, maybe we can play with them later. Alright, thank you. Hello. We finished the activity with comparing the sensory blocks, and it went a lot better than I had expected. Everyone classified them really well by color, by looking at them and noticing if they were a square, comparing that all the sides of the square were all 4 even shaped sides. We stacked them to make sure that they weren't larger, that none were sticking out. We compared the size of the balls and if that made any difference. We noticed that shaking, the ones with the bigger balls didn't make as much of a noise. And we even got into some like patterning because it ended up being such a quick activity, which I didn't really expect, but with young children that's better because they don't sit for so long. So it's a good activity. With younger children and not adults, I probably would have been there a little bit longer. So that would be one actual like real world difference, but I do like this activity. I do think it would probably get a little noisy with sensory blocks. If I had access to like my real life classroom, I might use different blocks. The only real thing to really look out for that I would be careful of is the hardness of the blocks, because there are on occasion, blocks, if they're stacked too high, they fall over, and safety first in the classroom. I don't want them falling, and the chance that they could fall over on a friend. So I don't want them falling on another child or anything like that. or sometimes kids that want to throw or kick them and they don't realize that they could hit another friend on the head. That would be something to be careful of. Something else is that with these sensory blocks, they're really expensive. So a lot of times, if these were used for the actual experiment, the advantage to these was that the shapes inside the blocks were used, and the fact they make noise helps motivate kids a lot because they can shake that, and that's an additional experiment that the shapes inside kind of have a cause and effect. But they're so expensive that a lot of times they won't supply in large amounts, so then not every kid will get a few blocks to experiment differences on. So that really wouldn't work out in the real world because with only 3 kids, I would have enough, but with a whole classroom of potentially 10 in a ratio where it's one teacher to 10 3-year-olds, I might not have enough for all of them. And with comparison, I would probably am more toward like pre-kindergarten anyway. So that might not work out, and that would be something to think about in the real world. But that's definitely something to think about. It was time friendly, but it would be something cost effective, and I would have to look at materials, just making sure they're soft enough and that they could be, safe for the kids. But the activity itself went well. The only thing that would be difficult too is that this is one that's it tends to be very verbal. I guess it could be drawn in journals, but it's hard to describe, not with words. And if you don't speak another language and this child is coming from a language learning home, they may not understand what we're doing in the activity, and I want a more universal activity. So I would have to have a way to explain to them. So what I was thinking is I could take the different colored foam sheets and have them sort onto that, but that would be more of a sorting activity and not a comparison activity. So that would change the purpose of the activity. So I would have to find a whole different activity for that purpose or for comparing. So that would be one thing to think about. It doesn't really work for that purpose. But otherwise, it went very well in this demonstration. I think all classes differ depending on which kids you teach, which kids you have in each class. But this demonstration it went well, and it's something I might be able to replicate in the real world and test there too. So that's something to look forward to. Thank you.